In this chapter, we'll look at consumer and provider not found exception. Let's create a new app called Provider Overview 09. Since Provider Overview 09 is a simple app, we'll start with the basic skeleton already made. First, I installed the provider in pubspec.yaml and set it not to use linter in the analysis options.yaml file. Since we'll use the provider at the main.dart, import the provider package. Set the title as a provider 09. Make it so the debug banner is not displayed. And modify my homepage, which was a stateful widget to a stateless widget. Create class foo and mix it with change notifier. Create a string type variable value that has foo as an initial value. Create a void type change value function. If the value of the value variable is a foo, change the value to bar. If the value is not foo, assign foo to the value and then call notify listeners function to notify the listeners. Give provider 09 as the my homepage app bar title and give a column widget as a child of center widget. The first child is a text widget that displays a static text value in font size 40.0. Then I gave a size box of height 20.0. And finally, I made an elevated button. Wrap the center widget with a foo type change notify provider and create a foo instance in create callback. Next, modify the static string value of the first text widget to context.watch foo.value. Next, we'll modify the empty callback of the elevated button to context.read foo change value. Let's do a hard restart. An error has occurred. This is an error you will see often in the future. It's not easy to see in the debug console, so let's look at the information I've organized. It says a provider not found exception error has occurred. This error is related to the build context, and there are several scenarios. Let's take a look at those scenarios one by one. First scenario is you added a new provider in your main.dart and perform hard reload, which is definitely not, because we just did a hard restart. The second scenario is the provider you are trying to read is in a different route, is also not applicable, because you have never navigated to another route. This case will be dealt with in detail later. The third scenario says you use the build context that is an ancestor of the provider you are trying to read. Then, instead of using it like the one on the left, it says to use the builder like the one on the right. The left side has exactly the same structure as our current app. And on the right side, it says we use builder to obtain a new build context that has access to the provider. If you use a builder, you can get the correct context because builder makes it as if there was one widget between text widget and the provider widget. Let's take a look at the manual, shall we? It says that it is a syntax sugar to get a build context that can read the created provider. The code on the left is exactly the same as the builder widget on the right. The builder widget is a widget that is provided by Flutter. And as shown in the picture, between the text widget and the provider widget, the builder widget provides a build context so that the text widget can access the provider. In other words, it has the same effect as having another widget between the text widget and the provider widget. Now let's fix it using builder. After cutting the center widget with Command X, I'll fix the child with the builder. Builder has a build context and nullable type widget as an arguments. In the builder function, paste the previously cut center widget and return it. Let's run it after hard restart. I click the change a value button and it changed the value. You can see that it works normally. But originally, we were talking about consumer. We looked at the builder pattern for a bit. So let's change it to what we were originally trying to do. Cut the entire builder using Command X and create a foo type consumer in the child property of change notifier provider. And after copying the builder that was cut earlier, add the foo argument. Next, we will change the context watch to full and the context read to full. Let's run it after a hard restart. The app works normally. I was able to get the same result as a builder even using consumer. You can comprehend this to be basically the same result because it uses a builder pattern. When a provider not found exception happens, you have three options. First, if possible, put it higher up in the widget tree. Second, use a builder. And third, use a consumer. Among these, you can use the option that suits your situation. Now, let's learn about selector next.